So guys, let's quickly look at the next chapter, that is drainage system. We have already seen about drainage system where we spoke about Himalayan rivers and also peninsular rivers. Within peninsular rivers, we divided it into west flowing rivers and east flowing rivers. Here you will get the same information with some additional facts which may be asked in the exam. So let's quickly get into each one of this carefully now. So first important thing, as you're all aware, the flow of water through well-defined channels is known as drainage, and a network of that is called as drainage system. I have already told you there is difference between when I talk about Ganga river and Ganges river system. The meaning of Ganges river system is I have to include the tributaries. I call it at the basin level as well, right? So it's very, very important for us to look at these two differences. The main reason for this is usually India tries to say that we need to address the problems at the drainage level, whereas other countries want to talk at the basin level, where they want to include other countries like Nepal. For example, if I am taking Bangladesh, Bangladesh want to include Nepal and Bhutan also. And even they want China to be interfered when we talk about Brahmaputra river. So here what we need to understand is, so if we talk at the river level, we are taking only Ganges river which is flowing between India and Bangladesh. If we are talking about the entire system, we need to consider the entire platform. So usually water basin or drainage system is in news. A river drains the water collected from a specific area which is called as catchment area of the river. That is wherever the river flows and it gives water to that particular area, we call it to be catchment area. An area drained by a river and its tributaries is called as drainage basin or water basin, as we have already seen. Important drainage patterns, we have already seen dendritic, like leaves, trees, radial, from one place it is moving, dendritic looks like this, I hope you remember. And then you have trellis pattern which usually comes and joins at right angles. And then you have centripetal, that is rivers from all the directions they come and flow into lake. Radial, from mountain they are originating outside. Centripetal, so if you have a lake, from different parts it actually comes and joins. Usually they will be larger lakes which you usually observe. Larger lakes or sometimes seas are also considered to be this. In the picture here, they have actually tried to give you a division between the east flowing rivers and the west flowing rivers. Usually the east and west flowing rivers we usually do in the peninsular rivers, but we don't try to do it for the Himalayan river system as well. If we actually consider Indus water, then the Indus water actually comes under the west flowing river. Can you see here? So it goes and joins near Karachi port. I have already told you, right? So Indus is a west flowing river, whereas Ganga, Brahmaputra is east flowing rivers. Whenever you are talking about west flowing and east flowing, please don't limit yourself to peninsula alone. You have to give about the Indus water as well. And some examples of Luni river, Sabarmati, Mahi also comes under this. So let's quickly get into how exactly are they divided. On the basis of discharge, they may be divided into Arabian Sea drainage and the Bay of Bengal drainage, or western and eastern. They are usually separated through Delhi Ridge. Very, very important, guys. Very, very important. You have to remember this at any cost. Delhi Ridge separates Indus and Ganga as well. It also separates west and east. Aravallis also separates west flowing and east flowing, and you have Sahyadris, Maharashtra, right, which also separates this. Nearly 77% of the drainage area consisting of the Ganga, Brahmaputra, Mahanadi and Krishna is oriented towards Bay of Bengal, while 23% comprising Indus, Narmada, Tapi, they enter into this. So what is the difference between east and west flowing rivers? If they ask you, you have to give the percentage as well. That is 77% is actually moving towards Bay of Bengal, 23% is moving towards Arabian Sea. So remember, mains is all about these points which you have to write. On the basis of size of watershed, that is how much area is the basin present. We usually divide rivers into major river basins and medium river basins and minor river basins. So which are they? You can actually see 14 drainage basins actually comes under this. I'll be showing you the appendix 3 where they have actually spoken about all these 14 rivers, right? So it's very, very important for you to cover this. So what exactly do you remember here? You need to look at major river basins, means greater than 20,000 square kilometer. Medium means 2,000 to 20,000. Minor river basins less than 2,000 square kilometer. So these points are very, very crucial for us. Then on the basis of origin, you have old and new, or we call it Himalayan drainage and peninsular drainage. Himalayan is new, peninsular is old. So even though when we consider Chambal, Betwa, Sindh, they are older because they actually originate near peninsula and enter into Himalayan system. So even though it is originating in peninsula, we actually put them under the Himalayan drainage system itself for convenience. So now let us quickly begin with the drainage system of India. Firstly, we need to talk about the Himalayan drainage system. So the Himalayan drainage system has evolved through the long geological history. It mainly includes the Ganga, the Indus and the Brahmaputra river basins, as you are all aware. And Indus is west flowing, Ganga and Brahmaputra are on the eastern side, or it is Bay of Bengal drainage. Since these are fed both by melting of snow and precipitation, they are perennial. I have already told you that the Himalayan rivers get rainfall and also melting of snow contribute to it. So we call it perennial. And you know that western disturbances usually brings rainfall to northwestern parts of India in winter, and it also gives snow cover to Himalayas. Very, very important for us. Now, when we look at these Himalayan rivers, these rivers pass through gorges carved out by the erosional activity carried on simultaneously with the uplift of Himalayas. I have already showed you in between mountains, gorges look something similar to this. And here what is happening? The Himalayas, I told you, there was some uplift of Himalayas, right? Rivers earlier used to flow like this. Now what happened? In between, you got some mountains. Now what happened? The river started moving like this because this is the new slope that is available, and it started eroding these mountains. So when I am actually talking about a river moving like this, so the river is flowing in this, and we usually observe some sort of gorges being developed by the flowing rivers. As it is in its youthful stage, V-shaped valleys, rapids and waterfalls in their mountains are usually common. While entering the plains, they form depositional features like flat valleys, oxbow lakes, floodplains, braided channels, deltas near the river mouth. You should know that in the matured age or in the old age of the rivers, usually they meander. Whenever they meander, right, usually some deposition takes place. So these are like flat valleys, and sometimes whenever it is meandering like this, there will be some lakes left out. That is called as oxbow lake. Flood plains on either side, whenever the water level increases suddenly, the water goes and it deposits. Again the water shrinks in summer, or whenever the amount of water available in the river reduces, they shrink. This is called floodplains. And whenever the river enters near the delta, they usually get distributed in this pattern. So these are called as braided channel, and they deposition leads to delta. So you need to know that these are the terms associated with river erosional activities or depositional features during this 11th standard physical geography book. We will be seeing all these things in detail. In the Himalayan reaches, the course of these rivers is highly tortuous, but over the plains they display a strong meandering tendency. That is, it was straight and it hits, and it is vertical in nature. Whereas whenever we look on the plains, it will be horizontal. River Kosi is known as sorrow of Bihar. The reason for this is it creates floods. The Kosi brings huge quantity of sediments from its upper reaches and deposit it in the plains. Usually what happens, let me take, the river is flowing in this. Now, when the river is flowing, it usually deposits more when it is carrying sediments. So whenever it deposits more, then what happens? The water will reach the surface level. For example, let me show you here. So if I have a mountains like this, okay, I'm just giving you an example. The river is flowing. Now the deposition of the river came almost here. It has removed the slope completely. At this point of time, what happens? River, rather than moving inside, they will start moving in this direction, or they may start moving in this direction. People thinking that the river is flowing within the valley, they would have constructed their houses here. But whenever the water level increases, and if the water floods in any direction, this leads to severe flooding and damage. This is what we observe. That is, water was moving in here in the valley, but due to deposition, it covered till here. Now water is flowing here. When it is flowing here, it floods the villages. This is what you need to understand. When we talk about evolution of the Himalayan drainage system, we need to understand that the Himalayan drainage system is actually there because of the upheaval of the Himalayas. So glaciers are actually present near Tibet, and earlier the water used to flow into Tethys Sea, which was there. Now what is happening? Because of the Himalayas, the rivers have started moving from this Himalayas or from Tibet across Himalayas into Indian plains. And then once they enter, they go like this, because there is a geosyncline there, and after moving like this, they again turn because of the Malda gap, which we have already seen. If we are actually considering the Indo-Brahma river system, we are distributing it into Indus, Ganga and the Brahmaputra. So let us see what exactly are these. So here, when they talk about the evolution, they say that the entire Indo-Brahma system, that is Indus, Ganga, Brahmaputra, was together. But because of upheaval of Himalayas thrice, usually we observe Indus started moving westwards, Brahmaputra started moving eastwards, and Ganga started moving southwards. This is because of uplift. Second important thing they talk about this is that there is a Delhi ridge which actually separates Indus and the Ganga. Even this led to some division. And then the Malda gap, which was actually formed between the peninsular plateau and the Meghalaya plateau, led to Ganga and Brahmaputra, rather than meeting each other, they have turned towards Bangladesh and they are entering into Bay of Bengal. Here what are we observing? That if you look, they are all together. Once the Delhi ridge came, they separated the Indus and the Ganga. And when it comes to the Meghalaya or Malda plateau, then this actually separated the Ganga and the Brahmaputra. So they were coming together and meeting, but they turned southwards because of the Malda Gap. Now, let us take the Indus system and read about this in detail. So what exactly we need to understand? It originates from a glacier near Bokarchu. In Tibet, it is actually called as Singi Kamban or Lion's Mouth. After flowing in the northwest direction between Ladakh and Zaskar ranges, it passes through Ladakh and Baltistan. Very, very important, mainly because India constructs some dams when it comes to Indus flowing in India. Pakistan and China are planning to construct dams on this in Pakistan occupied Kashmir. So because of this, UPSC may ask you questions in geography with respect to this. It cuts across the Ladakh range, forming gorge near Gilgit in Jammu and Kashmir. In Gilgit Baltistan of Pakistan occupied Kashmir, we usually observe China is planning to construct dams on this. So please be careful about this. The Indus receives a number of Himalayan tributaries such as Shyok, Gilgit, Zaskar, Hunza, Nubra, Shigar, Gesting and Dras. On these rivers, Pakistan and China are constructing the dams. It finally emerges out of hills near Attock, where it receives the Kabul river on its right bank. Very, very important for you to remember that Kabul is a tributary of Indus which originates in Afghanistan. So whenever we are talking about Indus water system, we speak about the Indus water treaty between India and Pakistan, but we don't talk about the Indus water treaty which also has to include Kabul river system. Afghanistan is saying that Pakistan is not allowing them to construct dams, and Pakistan is saying that Afghanistan is planning to construct dams with the help of India, and it wants to block water entering into Pakistan. This is what Pakistan tries to claim. But what is more important for us here is Kabul is also a tributary of Indus River. Then you usually observe they all originate in the Sulaiman ranges. Some of the important rivers which actually go and join Indus originate near Sulaiman ranges. Not important for us, but what is more important, the river flows southward and receives Panjnad a little above Mithankot. That is, when we look at Sutlej, Beas, Ravi, Chenab and Jhelum, they meet Indus at Mithankot. Very, very important. Mithankot in Pakistan. It's very, very important for us. And it finally discharges into Arabian Sea east of Karachi. Again, important. So, one important fact that you need to remember where UPSC may give you, consider the following facts is, Indus flows in India only through Jammu and Kashmir, right? But when we talk about Indus river system, it flows through Himachal, it flows through Punjab and Haryana as well, right? But when it comes to Indus, it is only in Jammu and Kashmir. The next important tributary of Indus is Jhelum. I have already showed you that Jhelum is in its youth stage but still meanders when it comes to Kashmir Valley. So here it rises at Verinag, situated at the foot of Pirpanjal ranges, and you are all aware that Pirpanjal and Greater Himalayas, in between this you have Kashmir Valley. It originates in the Pirpanjal ranges and flow over the Kashmir Valley. It flows through Srinagar and the Vullar Lake before entering Pakistan through a deep, narrow gorge. The meaning of this is, again you have a gorge, that is valleys are there. So once it starts in Pirpanjal, again it moves through the mountains and enters into Pakistan. That is why we say, even though it is moving on a flat surface where slope is less, then we call it in its youth stage, because even after this it again enters into the youth stage. It joins Chenab River near Jung in Pakistan. Jhelum joins Chenab River. You should remember, first you have Indus, then you have Jhelum, then you have Chenab. And these three rivers are part of Pakistan. Indus river has Indus plus 5. So 3 west flowing rivers or north flowing rivers are usually given to Pakistan, whereas 3 east flowing rivers, that is Satluj, Ravi and Beas, are part of India. So according to Indus water system or Indus water treaty, we say that 20% of Pakistan rivers can be utilized by India for irrigation, water purpose and others, but unfortunately, whenever we construct any dam, Pakistan claims that India is going for more than 20%, whereas India says we are less than 20% in constructing the dam. So this is what we try to talk. Then the Chenab is the largest tributary of Indus. Very, very important for you guys. Please remember, usually people think Satluj is more. It is formed by 2 branches, Chandra and Bhaga, which join the Tandi near Kailong in Himachal Pradesh, not required. Hence it is also known as Chandrabhaga, as it is given in NCERT, remember. Sometimes they may ask you, but not very important. Then you get the Ravi is another important tributary of Indus. It rises west of Rohtang Pass in Himachal Pradesh, Kullu Manali, you might have heard of it, and flows through Chamba Valley of the state, not Chumbi Valley. Chumbi Valley is in another place, it is Chamba Valley. Before entering Pakistan and joining the Chenab river, near this, it drains the area lying between the southern part of Pirpanjal range and the Dauladar ranges. In between Pirpanjal and Greater Himalayas, Jhelum flows. In between Pirpanjal and Dauladar, you usually see Ravi river flowing. Very, very important. Remember, Ravi is also going on joining Chenab. Correct? Jhelum is also going on joining Chenab. Ravi is also going on joining Chenab. This is the reason why we say that Chenab is the longest tributary. The Beas is another important tributary of the Indus, originating from the Beas Kund near the Rohtang Pass at an elevation of 4,000 meter above the mean sea level. The river flows through the Kullu Valley and forms gorges at Kati and Larji in this. It enters Punjab plains where it meets the Satluj near Harike. Very, very important for you. Beas is actually joining Satluj. Satluj originates in Rakas lake near to Manasarovar. Manasarovar where Indus also originates. So it's very, very important for you to know that Satluj also originates near Tibet. It flows almost parallel to the Indus for about 400 before entering India and comes out of a gorge at Rupar. See, usually both Indus and Satluj will be moving like this. Indus moves in northwestern direction, Satluj moves in eastern direction because slope varies. Rivers, when they are moving parallel, usually you observe one moving northwest, another one moving northeast or southeast. Then let us take about the Bakra Nangal project, very important because Punjab and Haryana is actually dependent on this. Mostly Punjab is dependent on this. Then we have the Ganga system. So very easy. You are talking about Gangotri Glacier near Gaumukh in Uttarakashi district of Uttarakhand. Remember guys, this is not originating in Tibet, it is in Uttarakhand. Here it is known as Bhagirathi. It cuts through the central and lesser gorges at Devprayag. Bhagirathi meets Alaknanda and after this it is called as Ganga. Question for you. Ganga is getting its name once Bhagirathi meets Alaknanda at Devprayag, or right from its origin it is known as Ganga. So the answer is at Devprayag. The Bhagirathi after meeting Alaknanda will be called as Ganga. The Alaknanda has its source in the Satopant glacier above Badrinath. Very, very important for you. The Alaknanda consists of Dauli and the Vishnu Ganga which meets at Joshnimat or Vishnu Prayag, not required. The other tributaries of Alaknanda they have given. Pindar joins it at Karna Prayag, while Mandakini or Kali Ganga meets it at Rudra Prayag. The Ganga enters plains at Haridwar. Very, very important for you. In geography through maps, which I'll give you a separate video, I'll be trying to provide how to remember all these drainage systems carefully once. So you need to see this now. Later I'll help you how to remember. So Ganga enters plains at Haridwar. Very important point. These are all factual data, but once we take the maps and if we try to relate it, it would be easy for us. From here it flows first to the south, then to southeast, and they split into two distributaries. One is Bhagirathi and the other one is Hooghly. Bhagirathi enters into Bangladesh, Hooghly actually enters into West Bengal. It is shared by Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar and West Bengal. The Ganga basin covers 8.6 lakh square kilometer, and the Ganga river system is the largest in India, having a number of perennial and non-perennial rivers. If Ganga is moving like this, some rivers come and join from Himalayas and some rivers start in the peninsular plateau and go and join the Himalayan river system. So it has tributaries both from peninsula and also from Himalayas. The Son is its major right bank tributary. The important left bank tributaries are Ramganga, Gomti, Ghagra, Gandak, Kosi, Mahananda. Very, very important. Please try to see. The river finally discharges itself into Bay of Bengal near Sagar Island. UPSC may ask you question about Sagar Island. Where exactly is Ganga disposing? It is near Sagar Island. Next, one of the major tributary of Ganga is Yamuna. It is the westernmost river. It originates closer to this in the Yamunotri glacier and moves parallel to Ganga, and it joins Ganga at Allahabad. Now, Yamuna joins Ganga, but Yamuna tributaries are Chambal, Sindh, Betwa, Ken. Remember, Son is a tributary of Ganga. Son is not a tributary of Yamuna. Whatever I tell, please try to remember. Exceptions are what I am trying to say, and UPSC usually gives you this and you get confused about these facts in the exam. So what did we see? We observed that initially Ganga is known as Bhagirathi and it is joined by Alaknanda at Devaprayag. After this, Bhagirathi is actually called as Ganga. Is it correct? Then we see Ganga moves and it splits into two, Bhagirathi and Hooghly river. Hooghly river actually enters into West Bengal and Bhagirathi enters into Bangladesh. This is what we observed. And we need to talk about the tributaries. Son and Yamuna are the major right bank tributaries. That is, if Ganga is moving like this, whichever rivers comes and joins here, we call it right bank. Whichever comes and joins here is called as left bank tributaries. Now, Yamuna actually comes at Yamunotri glacier and then it joins Ganga at Allahabad. Before Yamuna joins Ganga, you have Chambal, Betwa, Ken rivers which come and join Yamuna, and Yamuna go and join Allahabad. Son is a major river which go and join Ganga directly. So this is very, very important for you, and you should remember that Yamuna actually flows through Agra. Taj Mahal is on Yamuna river. The Chambal rises near Mo in Malwa plateau of Madhya Pradesh and flows northward through a gorge upwards into Rajasthan, where the Gandhi Sagar Dam has been constructed. From Kota, it traverses down to Bundi, Savai Madhapur, Dholapur and finally joins Yamuna. The Chambal, whenever it moves, they actually remove the soil. So this leads to some sort of topography called as badland topography, and it is also called as ravines. You might have seen whenever rainfall occurs, on the soil there will be some holes present. So these holes are actually called as ravines. The Gandak comprises two tributaries, Kali Gandak and Trishul Ganga. It rises in Nepal Himalayas, not required much. You should know that Gandak is moving between Nepal and India. The Gaghara originates in the glaciers of Mapachunga After collecting water from Tila, Seti and Beri, it comes out of the gorge. Then you have river Sharda, Kali or Kali Ganga, right? And it joins Ganga at Chapra. The Kosi is an antecedent river. The meaning of antecedent river is, that is, it is moving from the Himalayas. So earlier it was moving like this, in between Himalayas came, but still it is moving like this, right? Consequent means along with the slope the river changes. Antecedent means earlier it was flowing like this, even after Himalayas coming it is still flowing in the same direction. We call it antecedent rivers. Remember, if you have a slope like this and if river flows like this, we call consequent rivers. And it was flowing like this and there was a mountain in between. Even after there is mountain, the river flows by cutting this mountain. This is what we call as antecedent rivers. So the direction of the river doesn't change. Usually what happens, if the river is flowing like this and if a mountain comes, usually the river may move like this, correct? Or if the river is originating, it moves like this. But if the river is originating here and still it is moving in this direction after Himalayan upheaval, we call it to be antecedent rivers. And it rises in Tibet, where its main stream Arun rises. Arun is the main stream of Kosi, and several rivers they join to make it Saptakosi, right? All this unites with Arun, and we know that it is Saro of Bihar. Ram Ganga is comparatively a smaller river rising in Garhwal, not very important. Damodar occupies the eastern margins of the Chotanagpur plateau, where it flows through a rift valley and finally joins Hooghly. If you take the Chotanagpur plateau, some rivers go like this, some rivers go like this. We call it radial pattern is usually seen here. And Damodar is known as Sorrow of Bengal. Remember guys, there is something called as Barak river, which I was discussing in the previous paper as well. Barak river is a tributary of Meghna. Barakkar is a tributary of Damodar, and Damodar in turn is a tributary of Hooghly. Sarda or Saryu river rises in the Milam glacier in the Nepal Himalayas, where it is known as Gori Ganga, not so important. Mahananda is another important tributary of Ganga. The Sun is the largest tributary of Ganga, originating in the Amarkantak plateau. After forming a series of waterfalls at the edge of the plateau, it reaches Ara and join Ganga. Very important, right? West of Patna, it joins Ganga. Which river? Sun river joins Ganga near Patna. Very important for us. So guys, we saw the Ganges. Let us take Brahmaputra system now. It is one of the longest rivers of the world, and it originates in Chamayongdung glacier of the Kailash range near the Manasarovar lake. Manasarovar, Indus, Chamayongdung glacier is for Brahmaputra. From here it traverses eastwards longitudinally, that is above Himalayas they move longitudinally or they move parallel to the Himalayas, and then they enter into India. So in Tibet it is actually known as Sangpo, right? It emerges as a turbulent and dynamic river after carving a deep gorge. I have already told you gorge is something like this. In mountains they actually erode in such a way that some gorges are formed. Central Himalayas near Namcha Barwa. The river emerges from the foothills under the name of Siang or Dihang, and it enters India west of Sadia town in Arunachal Pradesh. And then some of its tributaries are Dibang or Sikang and Lohit. Once Dibang, Sikang and Lohit joins Dihang river, so here I am telling Dihang, it is joined by Dihang joined by Dibang and Lohit river, we usually get Brahmaputra. Very important. The Brahmaputra receives numerous tributaries when it is moving through Assam. One of the most important tributary is the Teesta river, which you all need to remember. The Subansari, which has its origin in Tibet, is an antecedent river. I have already told you. Similar to Kosi, this is an antecedent river. That means after Himalayas were formed, these rivers started moving in their original direction itself. The Brahmaputra is well known for floods, channel shifting and bank erosion. The reason is, as soon as it enters into Assam, it meanders. This is due to the fact that most of its tributaries are large and bring large quantities of sediments owing to heavy rainfall in its catchment area. One of the most important things that you need to remember with respect to Brahmaputra is that Brahmaputra, when it is moving in Tibet, it is not having much water. But once it enters into Arunachal Pradesh, after Dibang and Lohit joins, and then once it comes, several tributaries comes and joins. Most of these tributaries originate in northeast India, or they are actually originating in the Himalayas. And because of the heavy rainfall present in the northeast India, because of the Bay of Bengal branch, we usually observe that floods usually take place. Second important thing, along with floods, as this river meanders, that will also add to lot of flooding or large quantities of sedimentation taking place in this particular region. Then let us take the peninsular drainage system, where we need to talk about the old system that is actually present. So if I am talking about the peninsula, the Western Ghats running close to the western coast act as the water divide between the major peninsular rivers, that is from Western Ghats. Some rivers are flowing to the east, that is towards Bay of Bengal, and some rivers are actually moving into Arabian Sea. So the divide is Western Ghats. Most of the major peninsular rivers, that is Mahanadi, Godavari, Krishna, Kaveri, apart from Narmada and Tapi, flow from west to east. Narmada and Tapi move from east to west, and one of the main reason why it is moving from west to east, it is a rift valley, that is, it is present inside a rift valley. The Chambal, Sindh, Betwa, Ken, Son, originating in the northern part of the peninsula, belong to the Ganga river system. Very, very important for us to remember this. Fine. The other major river systems of the peninsular drainage are Mahanadi, Godavari, Krishna, Kaveri, which you already know. So let us see how exactly this peninsular drainage system evolved. So the three major reasons which actually led to the formation of this particular drainage pattern, that is west and east flowing in the peninsula, is mainly because one important thing. As I have already told you that whenever we are talking about the submergence and emergence, first this actually occurred. Because of this, we usually observe that earlier when it was like this, and if you have Western Ghats in between, water used to originate, move for some distance. But now what has happened, because of the submergence, Western Ghats are here and water level is present just closer to that. Because of this, water directly enters into the ocean and do not form deltas or estuaries. So this is the first important thing that has happened. So here you can see subsidence of the western flank of peninsula leading to its submergence. Second important thing, when this particular peninsula went and hit the Himalayas, there was some tilting, and it is believed that during this there were some parts which went below, and the rift valley is also created during this upheaval of the Himalayas. And due to this we observe Narmada and Tapi moving in between faults. The meaning of faults is this: you have two mountains and in between the river actually flows, right? And then there is a small or slight tilting in this fashion. Even though it has like this, there is a slight tilting in this fashion. Because of this tilt, usually almost all the rivers which originate here start moving in this direction. So here we usually observe that the drainage system is towards Bay of Bengal because of the tilt. What are the three important things? The western side is submerged, correct? The eastern side is emerged, but the tilt is towards the eastern side. So rivers are flowing in this direction. And whenever it went and hit, it is believed that some parts have went down. Either it may be because of this, or usually people argue that it is because of some sort of divergence that has actually taken place. Whenever divergence takes place, you see rift valley. So you never know what has actually happened. So different people have different opinion with respect to this. So it's very, very important for you to remember these points as it is given in NCERT book. High possibility UPSC may ask you a direct question about the evolution of peninsular drainage system, where you have to talk about these 3 points. Fine? UPSC will definitely ask you a question about this. River systems of the peninsular drainage that we need to see. So first let us take the Mahanadi river, which actually starts near Sihava in Raipur, district of Chhattisgarh, and runs through Odisha to discharge the water into Bay of Bengal. Correct? And now you need not remember anything, you just need to see that this actually flows through Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh and Odisha, because whenever there is dispute on Mahanadi river, these 3 states come. So this is important for you. Next, you have to talk about the Godavari, which is largest and it is also called as Dakshina Ganga. It originates in Nasik district of Maharashtra and it drains into Bay of Bengal, and it usually moves through Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, Andhra Pradesh. People get confused, will it flow through Karnataka? No. Usually the states which are actually fighting for the Godavari is Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, but the water also flows through Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh. The major fight is actually between Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh. Now you have to consider Telangana as well. The Penaganga, Indravati, Praniti, Manjra are the principal tributaries. At least 3 to 4 times UPSC has asked you which are the major tributaries of Godavari. Right? It is important for you to look into this. It is navigable only in deltaic stretch. The river after Rajahmundry splits into several branches forming a large delta. The Polavaram project is being constructed on this particular river. UPSC question about this project was also asked. The Krishna is the second largest east flowing peninsular river, which rises near Mahabaleshwar in Sahyadri, Maharashtra. Koyna, Tungabhadra, Bhima are its tributaries. So it passes through Maharashtra, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. So it's important for you to look at this particular aspect as well. The Kaveri rises in the Brahmagiri hills of Kodagu district in Karnataka. Very, very important, whenever Kaveri issue is there in news, please try to read this particular topic. Here you observe that it actually gets rainfall both in the summer and the winter, so it is almost perennial. About 3% of the Kaveri basin falls in Kerala, 41% in Karnataka and 56% in Tamil Nadu. On the basis of equity, that is, in whichever area the drainage or dependent on Kaveri is more, there usually more water has to be released. So here we usually see the important tributaries of it are Kabini, Bhavani and Amravati. Guys, please try to read this carefully again and again. You may get a question that, sir, if Kaveri gets water from all these places, still why there is so much of fight? The major fight is because sugarcane is usually grown in this region and sugarcane requires more water. As people are fighting for more water, and Bangalore and other cities are also dependent on Kaveri water for drinking purposes, which is not included in the tribunals. As more water is required on both sides for sugarcane and others, they keep on fighting. Now whenever floods happen, no one is bothered. But whenever there is less water, then usually these issues are raised. Narmada originates on the western flank of the Amarkantak plateau. I have already told you about sun and other things. Very, very important for you. Recently, Sardar Sarovar project, a gravity dam was actually constructed on this. Very, very important for us. Tapi is the other most important westward flowing river. It originates from Multai in the Betul district of Madhya Pradesh, right? Nearly 79% of its basin lies in Maharashtra. 15% in Madhya Pradesh, and the remaining 6% in Gujarat. Luni is the largest river system of Rajasthan, which originates in Aravallis and drains in the basin itself. It doesn't reach till Arabian Sea as well. It originates near Pushkar in two branches, the Saraswati and Sabarmati, which join with each other at this. Right? No need to read about this much. What is more important is join the run of Kutch. It is very, very important. Smaller rivers flowing towards the west. So here they have given you some small rivers where you need to talk about. Shatrunji is one such river which rises near Dalkova in Amreli district. Bhadra originates near this, not important. Sabarmati and Mahi are two famous rivers and it is important for you. UPSC will not go beyond this. The Vaitarna rises from Trimbak Hills in Nasik. The Kali Nadi rises from Belagaum district and falls in the Karwar Bay. The sources of Bedti lies in Hubli, Dharwar and traverses. Sharavati is another important river, right? Very, very important for you. Jog Falls is on this. Goa has Mandovi and Juari rivers. UPSC at max may ask you in match the following these rivers. In which state, which smaller rivers are actually present? Kerala has some of the longest like Bharatapuzha, which rises near Annamalai Hills, right? And then you have Periyar is the second largest river system of Kerala. Please try to remember these. Some of the small rivers flowing towards east, if you have to see, then you have Sabarnareka, Brahmani, Baitarni, Vamsadara, Pennar, Palar, Vaigai. I want you to note them in your atlas. Please try to read them in your atlas once. More than enough, no need to worry. This particular paragraph or this particular table can be asked in UPSC for 10 marks. See, place of origin, where Himalayan mountain, peninsular plateau and central highland. Peninsula is divided into Deccan plateau and central highland, anywhere it can come. Perennial, receive water from glacier and rainfall, mostly dependent on monsoon rainfall. We call it seasonal. Antecedent and consequent. What is the meaning of antecedent? So first it was moving in a particular direction, Himalayas came, but still it is moving. Superimposed, rejuvenated, trellis, radial, rectangular. You know trellis, radial and rectangular, I told you about Amarakantaka and others. But what is about rejuvenated? The meaning of this is, usually the river, if it was in its mature stage and old stage, we usually call it to be almost dead. Let me take the case. So earlier, the peninsula was like this. Now what happened? The rivers were moving flat, correct? Now what happened? I told you submergence on one side, emergence on one side. Now the slope increased here. Earlier it was flat. Now the slope has increased like this. So can you see rivers moving like this? So if the river had entered its old stage and then because of some tilting or twisting, if you see the river entering its matured stage, or from mature stage if the river enters into youth stage, we call it to be rejuvenated, right? Very, very important for us to look at this particular word, rejuvenated. Long course, flow through rugged mountains experiencing headward erosion and river capturing. The meaning of this is, so if Himalayas are there, it erodes and comes, and at the same time if any other rivers are moving, they go and catch them. River capturing takes place. In plains, meandering is usually seen. Here you usually see smaller, because plateau is less, fixed course with well adjusted valleys. That is, they are moving exactly. You can see Krishna, Godavari, they move in a particular valleys even today. Catchment area is very large. You take Indus, Ganga, Brahmaputra, they are very large, but these are very small because plateau itself is small. Age of the river, we usually see young and youthful. Old rivers are usually present in this region. Then they actually talk about river regimes. They may ask you directly a question about it. Here they actually say, how does water level differs in different rivers? This is very, very important for us whenever we talk about the issues between different states. For example, when you talk about the Ganges Water Treaty between India and Bangladesh, usually this treaty works in winter when the rainfall is less, or they may usually occur in summer again when rainfall is less, when the water level reduces in the Ganga. When we talk about Kaveri, Godavari, Krishna, whenever monsoon is there, there won't be any discussion about how much water has to be distributed. If not, it is important. So, you need to know the source of water for these rivers in all these cases, which is very, very important for you. Thus, the regime of the rivers of South India is controlled by rainfall, which also varies from one part of the peninsular plateau to another. I have already told you, Western Ghats receive more rainfall, whereas leeward side of the Western Ghats doesn't receive much rainfall. So, you should be understanding in which area, how exactly you get rainfall. So, here they try to explain this in detail. Nothing much to see. Is it fine? Then you usually observe extent of usability of river water. My suggestion to you, please go through this carefully, because what are the problems associated? No availability of water in sufficient quantity. Second, river water pollution. Load of silt in the river. Sedimentation takes place. So I told you floods happen. Uneven seasonal flow of water because different seasons, different rainfall. River water dispute between states, shrinking of channels due to extension of settlements towards the towlet. The meaning of this is, usually the settlements are increasing into the river beds itself, and they are not allowing the proper flowing of the rivers, and the rally for rivers and other things which are conducted by the people are usually to ensure that this usually works. Because of rally for rivers and other things going on in the country, it's very, very important for you to look at the drainage pattern of the country. I hope it is clear. I have already told you with the help of monsoons which area receives rainfall in which part. So if you can read this carefully, it is more than enough. Nothing much to explain in this particular topic. So guys, we will be taking the next important chapter, that is climate, vegetation and soil. I have already discussed climate. Some points which we have not discussed much, we will be taking up in climate. Natural vegetation and soil I have not covered at all. So we will be spending considerable time in understanding climate, vegetation and soil. So let's see this carefully now.